afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this week, and let me tell you what a week it has been. I think we're all a lot calmer this weekend compared to last weekend, as we're not on the verge of those tariffs, which, of course, you guys all know they got postponed by 30 days, so we don't have to worry about the tariffs again until March. So hopefully, the government can get their let's say their butts in gear and try to perhaps not have some tariffs, because I don't know about you guys, but I'm not particularly fond of tariffs. So we're gonna see how that all goes today. Of course, is I believe there's a game going on today called the Super Bowl. So I'm sure that I don't even know when it begins. Honestly, maybe it begins right after. I think it begins in the evening, so maybe it'll begin after this show. But yeah, always fun. So we got lots of news. We'll get through all the news, all of that fun stuff. Our swag counter, by the way, up at 5. So this month, if we get in total 25 supers throughout the month, or even membership gifting, like, if you give someone a membership, I'll count it. We're going to do a giveaway at 25. So I got to get my button gear and get a few of those swag things made. It is all a work in progress, but an exciting work in progress. All right. Oh boy, you guys are already in the chat. Nice and early. In first, Jonathan, am I late for an egg sale? You are not. In fact, we still have some excellent ones left for you. Oh, that was bad. Prairie says, good afternoon, everyone. Happy Sunday. Happy Sunday. We got Jordan. Good afternoon, Candace and chat fam. Hope all are well on this fine Super Sunday. Yeah, absolutely. Vic says, what's this big game everyone's talking about? I think, Vic, I believe it's a big Monopoly tournament that's happening somewhere in PEI, somewhere's on Prince Edward Island. No, it's probably the Super Bowl, but we'll leave it. We'll leave it at that. Max says, "Hello, all. Hope everyone is having a great weekend." Yeah, absolutely. Happy Sunday, all. Fly, Eagles, fly. All right. Yes, that's what is it? It's the Eagles and the Chiefs. That's what I think it is? And if I'm correct, I think the Chiefs have won 2 in a row, so they're going for the three-peat. But we'll have to see if that happens. Bleak says, "Greetings. Let's go. We got Lisa in the house. Anyone catch the Trump interview before the game? Wow. No, I did not. Uh-oh." I go, uh-oh, because I wonder what he has decided to do. Maybe he announced he's invading Liechtenstein. Nothing would surprise me. Let's see. He's serious. He wants Canada to be the 51st state. Yes. Now, there was, of course, the economic summit. And I got a story. It's one of my stories. But one part I didn't add is that at the end of the economic summit, when Trudeau thought the mics were off, one of them was not off. And he was telling business leaders that Trump is 100% serious about acquiring Canada. He wants the resources. What can we say? Larry says, went crazy, bought a ton of KHC Kraft Heinz catch-up calls for $30. We're up from $28.30 to $29.30. 0.32 calls into 0.49, 10K calls. Nice. Vic says, Candace, this is all part of the pregame festivals, and Fox ought to give you a shout-out. I know. Fox should definitely give me a shout-out. They probably won't, but I'd take it anyway. Let's see. Larry's saying 1K calls. Ooh, interesting. All right. Vic says, I bought NKE, UPS, Google FMC last week. I kind of recall you mentioning that, actually. New Broken says, this is the best channel for great finance. Thank you, New Broken. Always appreciate calls out. Call ups or whatever. We'll call. We'll just move into the news. All right, guys, let's jump into the news right away. We'll get the first one out of the way. Here we go. So, of course, we had our jobs reports dropping. They actually dropped on Friday, both for Canada and the United States. Now, this was good. These numbers were actually not bad. So, our unemployment rate dropped down to 6.6%. They were forecasting 6.8. So, that's really, really good. It's also our second consecutive monthly decline. Now, for job totals, we came in at 76,000 new jobs added last month. They were forecasting 25,000, so that's not too bad. Of course, in December, we had added 90.9K. Full-time jobs, we added 35.2 thousand. Part-time jobs, 40.9 thousand. Interestingly enough, we were actually anticipating losing full-time jobs in January, but that did not happen. So the forecast was a negative 10K. So that's not too shabby at all. Wages came in at 3.7%. They were actually forecasting 3.7. So that's not too bad. It's a little bit less than December. December wages increased on average of 3.8%. So what does this all mean? So the manufacturing sector, they carried the largest unemployment gains. They added 33,000 jobs. And interestingly enough, a third of those alone were in Ontario. So Ontario did a pretty good job giving people jobs the last month. Now the sector's actual gains, they were pretty much, they're pretty close to what they were year over year. They added 28,000 since January of 2024. One of the interesting things that I think is good to keep in mind is that nearly 40% of the 1.9 million manufacturing jobs depend on, guess what? Exporting Canadian goods. So that could be a problem. That could be a big problem. Also, in the automotive sector, nearly 70% of the manufacturing jobs depend on that U.S. demand. So if we get these tariffs coming through, that's going to hurt us next month for sure. Well, even though that won't begin until March, some companies have already begun laying off people in anticipation for them. One good example is there's a textile firm in Montreal called ShearTex. They laid off 40% of their workforce already in anticipation of the tariffs. Now, mind you, that's not a lot of people. That's like 350 people. But this is going to become a bit of a trend. Now, in the United States, their unemployment fell down to 4%. They were forecasting 4.1. So they're doing pretty good. The economy is still pretty cool down there. Now, their total jobs, they added 143,000. Now, they had forecast about 307,000. So they didn't hit that number. So they had a little bit of weakness there. Their wages came in at roughly average of 4.1% increase compared to the 3.9% forecast. But the U.S. economy is still ticking along pretty good. But keep in mind, these tariffs are going to hurt. They're going to hurt both sides of the border. So it'll be very interesting to see how things are going to look next week. Sorry. It's almost next week. That's about 3 weeks now. Let's see. Vaughn says, good day, all. And Karen says, I sold my Ryokan and purchased the Nike CDR. Oh, I love all the CDRs. Yeah, there's a lot of good CDRs over there. I'm still holding on to my Ryokan. I'm still holding on to my real estate exposed stocks because even with the tariffs, I do think we're going to have a strong year for real estate. So I'm going to be definitely watching to see what's going on. Ian says, watching at double speed. See you in 3 minutes. All right, no problem. King of Day says, hello all. Happy Sunday. A little late, but I made it. Absolutely. Always good to see you, King of Day. Ferris. Ferris says, good afternoon. What is your thoughts on SMCI? Yeah. We'll take a look. Just give me a second here. I actually need to bring up. I didn't share my screen yet, so it'll just take me a second here. Boop. Let's go here, and here's what I'm looking for. All right, let's pull this up, and it's actually a lot easier now. I just have to sort of make this disappear for a moment, but let's bring up the screen. SMCI, let's pull her up. All right. So SMCI, of course, is your super microcomputer. This is a stock that, oh boy, we've had a lot of. There's been a lot of fun with SMCI. It has gone up, and then of course there was a bit of a controversy in it. What was it? About a month ago, it fell a little bit during that. But let's give me a second here. Let's just pull this up and take a look. It looks like it's back on the mend again. We're going to go to the 3 years. So this is a stock that had, in 2024, it did really good. They do chips and things like that. I've never gotten on board with SMCI. I don't know. It's just one of these ones that I've never fully trusted the company. And I've been leery of them. Even when they were, looked like they were exploding. But they've had a rough time. They have had a rough time since pretty much since about early in the year, like March of last year. So the last year they've been absolutely not doing very well, at all. I would not. I think their pain is going to be a lot longer. I don't think they're going to do it. They're going to do well. I would stay away from them. That's kind of where I'm at personally. I mean, make up your own mind, of course, but this is a stock that, I know a lot of YouTubers, especially a lot of American YouTubers, were super hype on this stock. I just never was. I really never was. It just didn't. It almost had a pump and dump feel with a lot of the excessive hype that was out there. So yeah, I don't like super microcomputer at all. Let's see. Drisky says, "Are you cutting any stocks because of the tariffs?" That's a really great question. So I actually, well, first of all, when it comes to defensive investing, I got a video that's dropping on Tuesday. That's the next video. So it is all about defensive investing. So right now, I'm going to kind of play it by ear. Now, once the tariffs have begun, then my picks going forward are probably going to be a lot more aligned with a bit of a defensive. Now, here's the thing. There's two views on defensive investing. So one view is that, as long as you have good fundamental stocks across the board, yeah, you may not have great numbers during a downturn, like during a bear market or, maybe depending on what the tariffs are going to do. You won't have great numbers. But on the other side, when everything is into recovery, those stocks are going to be fine. They're going to go back into the green. So a lot of times it has to do with, I look at it this way when it comes to defensive investing. A lot of it does with your psychology, right? So if you're that type of person who when you start getting to seeing all the reds in your portfolio, you're like, oh my God, I'm so afraid. And you get tempted to sell. Well, those are the people that I think probably need to have a more defensive overall portfolio, even in the good times, just to sort of isolate them from the market volatility. And that's fine. That's absolutely fine. I'm okay with that. But I always look at it this way. What I will do is I will, of course, reevaluate my smaller stocks. Like probably my smaller stocks, like Diversified Royalty. So that's my little stock. But at the same time, it's a good little company. And you know what? The royalties that they hold, they're not going to be impacted by exports per se. Most of them are a lot of, like they have some restaurants like Jack Astor's, Mr. Lube, things like that. So they're still going to be fine. And I also think, like, for example, the Hammond stocks, I think they'll be fine too on the other end. They might be in the red for a little bit. But what I will do is during the tariffs is that when I'm adding, I will be adding to stocks like that. And I mean, if we go into a full bear market, anything in my cash position will slowly start. I'll start, sort of reverse dollar cost. Well, not reverse, but I'll be pulling it out bit by bit and using some of that as well. I'm hoping we don't go in. I'm hoping the tariffs don't hit Um, I have a feeling that Trump is going to want more concessions, and maybe depends on whether Canada's going to get us. Now, some of the things I think he might want are more access, of course, to the Canadian market, which might be for the telecoms. So imagine if all of a sudden American telecoms are allowed to operate in Canada. That, well, as a consumer, that would be fantastic, right? Our phone bills will go down. But um, as an investor, oh boy, if I even hear a whiff of that happening, I'll probably take my losses on Bell because it might be a lost cause. It might be a lost cause at that point. It really depends. Like, you know, a lot of the border cities probably are close enough to American coverage that there you might be able to use it there, but they might have to use, of course, some of the infrastructure, some of like Bell, Rogers, Telus, and I have a feeling they're not going to lower prices, so they might force them to be high. It could be a mess. It could be a mess, but we'll have to see. That right now, we really won't know what's going to happen until it happens. That's kind of just the way it is. All right. Max says, have the US and China tariffs started? China tariffs have. Now, and we're going to talk a little bit more. I do have a news article that does directly address that as well. So we'll get to that here in a little bit, Max. Your Demons. Hi, Candace. I saw a report saying that the reason SRTX is laying off is because they use material from China, and that material is what is tariffed. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Yeah, the tariffs have already begun. So keep in mind when they say a 10% tariff on China, there's already a whole bunch of tariffs on China. This is just an additional 10% that's being added to it. Fair says there's a big news about they missed 2 earnings and the auditor resigned. Oh, that's super micro strategy. Yeah, like I said, I'm just not big on it. Let's see. Vlad the Gladifier says this YouTube channel have a Instagram page. I have an Instagram. I think it's just Candace Mountain. You can certainly go to it if you want to. I think there's a lot of cat pictures and a lot of nature pictures, but there's a few things on here. Like I haven't really pushed the channel that much on Instagram. I probably should do it a little bit more though. Farah says on February 11th, they are going to share the earnings, but they are a supplier for NVIDIA. And that's fantastic. But yeah, I'm looking forward to, I don't think it's this Wednesday. When is NVIDIA's earnings? I know they're coming up. I'm looking forward to that. We'll have a market close that day. So we'll be able to watch that as it goes along. What do you think about HHIS? All right. So HHIS, I like it. I like it. The reason I like it is when you're looking at all of those harvest income shares, HHIS pretty much is holding all of them. So it's giving you a good wide exposure. Most of it's tech, of course. There's a lot of tech like NVIDIA, Tesla, Eli Lilly. I mean, there's a whole bunch of them in it. Amazon, of course. I do like it. I think it's an interesting, definitely an interesting ETF for sure. And one of the things I'm looking forward to is I can't wait till these guys get a little bit of time under their belt so that we can see how this is all going to work out. But right now, it is pretty exciting. Ian says ENCL is at a good entry point right now, in my opinion. How cheap can oil and gas get? Looking at long term, you're half drunk right now, so I might be rambling. Yeah, I mean, here is that thing. I'm still very bullish on oil, and it could get very, very interesting because one of the things I think that's really interesting is depending on how the whole drill baby drill thing goes, if Trump's, if they do start drilling a whole bunch more, that could flood the market a little bit. OPEC will probably then lower their output at that point. So we'll have to see how this is all going to boil down. But yeah, I think oil's at a good location right now, like price wise. I think I definitely see it going up. But once again, one other little caveat though is if the rumors that because there's been apparently a leak from a possible plan for the end of the Ukraine Russia conflict. If that happens, that could put some more downward pressure on oil. Um, so it could be very interesting. I'm kind of at this point right now that I personally am staying out of the leverage until I'm confident that we're at a bottom. I'm not fully confident yet. There's a few geopolitical things that could take it down. Now, let's take the other advocate. If Trump's plan to take over Gaza, if he actually tries to do it, that could cause a mess in the Middle East. There's a lot of countries that do not want that happening, and I don't think the Palestinians are going to just get up and walk out as easily as he seems to think removing them would be. So I think that could be a real mess, and if that happened, that would definitely impact oil big time. All right, let's see. If tariffs never happen, what's a good buy right now? Now that's a good question. I mean, I think there's a lot of good buys out there. One, obviously, the railroads right now I think are at good locations. They're going to be going up, unless now. Here's the interesting thing: railroads are in really kind of an interesting place because if we get the tariffs, part of what both CNR and CP do is they're moving stuff across the border. So they don't directly, they do the exporting, but they're just doing it for other people. So that doesn't directly hit them. But as these exports get tariffed and people all of a sudden don't need as much stuff moved across the border, then they get sort of hit by that side of it. So you could see an impact to them. But if there's no tariffs, I think that now that they've got strikes behind them and things are looking stable, you could see some big movements up. Now, another thing too is real estate is going to have I think real estate is going to have a good year once we get all this behind. I think if the tariffs go away, real estate will really have a chance to shine. If the tariffs stay in, it might slow real estate a little bit, but it's kind of going to, I think it's going to be very interesting to sort of watch as we move along. Let's see. Have you seen Battlestar Galactica? I'm rewatching it. Now, which version, Larry? The old school Battlestar Galactica from like the what was it, late 70s, early 80s, or the newer version? I have seen all of it though. Yeah, I always thought it was a pretty good series. I liked it. Let's see. Thinking about U.S. telecoms coming up here, prices would not come down. Same as U.S. dairy up here. Companies are looking at what we pay and are drooling. That's always the possibility too, and especially if they are being forced to sort of basically be a reseller off of the big lines, also off of Rogers, Telus, and Bell. So yeah, that could be very interesting, but it also depends on what the terms of the deal are too. So there's definitely, it could be very interesting either way, but I would be a little bit leery. There could certainly be, and maybe things work out long term, but there could be a lot of volatility in the telecommunications sector if that were allowed to go forward. Paul says, so if you like HHIS, what about HBIG? I was toying about buying some of it. It is kind of brand new too. Let's take a look here. It's like, yeah. All right, here we go. HBIG, here we go. So your harvest balanced income and growth. I like the name of it right away. Balanced income and growth sounds right up my alley. How long has this one been out for now? So yeah, not that long. It hasn't been out for a full year. We are seeing some good growth now. The market's been crap recently, so we got a little bit of crap in here as well. But it's that's actually a pretty high. I wasn't expecting a dividend quite that high. They're not using covered calls on it, are they? Let's see here. Exposure towards large capital. I'm not seeing any mentioned. It says non-leveraged. Yeah, that's not bad. Not bad. It'll be interesting to see, especially once we get beyond. Now, the problem is, I have a feeling that we're just not going to escape our fate when it comes to these tariffs. So I normally am very optimistic, but I have a feeling we are going to have a rough year. I'm hoping, and I'm really, really, really hoping I'm wrong. But my gut says, yeah, just hold on for the what's coming. Tom says everyone seems to be buying up HHIS now. Yeah. Um, and I don't even like we don't have much history on it. I'll pull it up here. As you can see here. All right. We don't we'll go to the 1 month. So yeah, we had that big peak, but I mean it is moving in the right direction, so that's not too shabby. But yeah, I'm pretty excited over all of these harvest ones. Ian says, got some dividends to reinvest on Monday, thinking ENCL and RMAX, but we'll see how I feel tomorrow. Yeah. Well, let's take a look at RMAX, see if we finally got some movement. Now, I know that their dividend just dropped, but so yeah, we're going to pull up the 6 month here. So yeah, they had that big move, and then they've had, as the whole market kind of crashed. I am hoping to see some movement, though. I am definitely hoping to see some movement. I'm still confident long term on RMAX, but I would like to see a little bit of movement back to the upside. Otherwise, if I don't, if I start getting movement in the other, so for example, if I start getting a lot of movement in Ryokan and I don't get it in RMAX, then I might reconsider my position. I know right now I think Ryokan did have a little bit of movement, but let's take a gander here. All right. And I'll just pull up the year. So yeah, they're still kind of crapping out a little bit too. So it'll be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see how this progresses. Hopefully sooner than later. All right, February 26th. Thank you, Prairie. All right. So we got a couple of weeks. We got at least a couple of weeks here. HHIS yield is very high. I don't see holding on to their dividends. SMVP it might be a safer bet. Yeah, maybe. Now with these harvests, so with all of these harvest ETFs, I mean, these are your I'm going to call it your income investor dream type type of funds. So, you will do better with a good solid fund that gives you, a good dividend growth stock will do better, I think, long term. But if you're in that position where you're trying to, especially if you're in retirement and you've got that TFSA that's just spitting out income and that's its function, these are fantastic for that. Ian says, last time I invested in a railroad, it was Reading Railroad. I think it was a bad investment for me. I don't know. There's a couple of cards that will put the opponent onto Reading Railroad for you. Larry says Battlestar 2004. I loved it. Was the 80s series good as well? Oh yeah. The 80s series was pretty good. Like I think they did 3 seasons, but it was pretty darn good. I liked it. Well, I mean, obviously, a lot of what you saw in the 2004, a lot of it came out of the original series, but they of course retooled it quite a bit. Ian says, I pay $18 Canadian a month for my cell coverage down here. Canadians are getting ripped off. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Michael says, hello, Candace. If time permits, could you please comment on InterRent REIT, as I find it has fallen and been in the dumps much more than other REITs? InterRent. Not familiar with that one, but let's take a look here. InterRent. There's InterRock. InterRent Real Estate Trust. So there's IIPP. That might be it. Let's take a look at this one here. All right. So yeah, you're saying InterRent REIT. Yeah, InterRent Real Estate Investment Trust. Here we are. Let's take a look and see. Oh, yeah. Yeah, they have they had a little, so their little spike that we had with the REITs, it was pretty small. So they had a small spike and then they have been down quite a bit. So, oh yeah, that's not great. But what do they have here? Let's see. Unit holder value creating and sustainable. Okay, I just want to know. All right, ownership of multi-residential properties. Well, that's not bad. Yeah, it's this is not that out of line. Other than the only difference is that I think that should have been a little bit higher on that, but I think it's kind of doing what the others are doing. Yeah, it's got a normal looking dividend yield. So that's interesting, Michael. I'm not sure why. I'm hoping that we see a little bit of movement in the real estate sooner than later for sure. All right, Mario's in the house, and we got Sophie in the house. CMVP. I like. All right, let's pull up CMVP. I don't think we have a lot of data because it is pretty new. So this, of course, is one of the Hamilton champions. Gotta love that. Just need a month here. Yeah, here's the data we have. We got no data on the Hamilton champions, but um, let's do this here. Google. Here we go. Lewis Hamilton. Here we go. Hamilton. All right. So yeah, the Hamilton champions index ETF. So it's interesting. So basically here, this one here has 8 equal weight portfolios of blue chip Canadian companies. There's also a US version as well if you want to get US ones. But I do like it. I do like it. I think it's a I like the fact. One of the things I like is Hamilton has always had these really high dividend ones. So now they're actually dropping a few of them in that are for the long-term people who are not looking for the big income. And I think this has a potential to be a pretty good stock. This one as well as the US one. So I do like them. I like them quite a bit. All right. Larry says, picked up a ton of Daily Journal. It dropped from 582 to 390. Wow. Yeah, I'm worried about sanctions. Daily Journal is the software running Canada's justice system now. E-prosecutor, e-court, e-probation, e-defender. Nice, nice. All right. All right. I am going to just give me a second here. We're slowly getting to the news. We'll go to the next piece of our news because I finally got caught up, which is fantastic. All right, actually, I'm there. I'm supposed to be down there for the news. Perfect. All right. All right. So this is our regular segment now, the trade war front lines. I got a couple of things in here. So I did mention once again, Trudeau did an economic summit on Friday. So he's meeting with business and labor leaders, basically looking at for reasons or ways that Canada can look to attract more investment and at the same time dismantle internal trade barriers and find new international customers, as of course the threat of these tariffs is starting to loom again. So the goal is to basically draft long-term prosperity agenda. Now, the trade barriers, though, those are the things that don't make a lot of sense. Like for example, we have a whole bunch of different rules from province to province that make it really hard sometimes to trade things. So some of these barriers, they're basically the result of decades. So we're talking a long time of the provinces basically regulating industries and trade without actually talking to each other. So there's about 600 regulatory bodies out there that regulate goods and services on the provincial level. And they create varying standards for things like maximum trucking loads and alcohol imports and things like that. I think Nova Scotia has one of the crazy ones where they have a pretty low weight that they will allow trucks to carry goods in Nova Scotia. So some trucks, if you're carrying a lot, you pretty much have to stop at the border. You can't go into Nova Scotia because the rules won't have it for you. There's also some provinces where they will say, this is the first aid kit that you need in these items. And another province will have completely different items in the first aid kits that they require a truck to carry with them. So there's all these crazy rules. They all have to be, they need to be standardized across the country so that we can have trade moving a lot easier. And of course, the other thing is that pipe, as in a pipeline. We need to be able to move oil to the east. Right now, the biggest stumbling block is Quebec, actually. Not just Quebec, Quebec as well as some of the native folk. They're sort of like, well, we need to make sure people are happy with the impact of actually moving this across lands, and that there'll be no impacts. So there's a lot that still needs to be ironed out in regards to getting the provinces all on board, but I think it needs to be a high priority because right now we're in a situation where like parts of Eastern Canada, especially the Maritimes, they're using oil and gas from the States because, that's once the lines go into the States, they become American. Um, yeah, it's not great. It's not great. Now, the other big thing in our trade war section is, of course, and I know one of you guys was talking about China earlier. This impacts China as well. It's something called the de minimis exception. So this is basically a little rule that has allowed packages worth less than $800 to enter the U.S. duty free. In Canada, we actually have a de minimis exception as well. For Canada, it's set at $150. So this is absolutely great because, a lot of retailers, like a lot of retailers in Canada that sell things to the US, as long as it's under $80, or $800, they've had no problem. They could just send it to the US, no problem. But one of the things is that Trump wants to do away with that. He also wants, of course, to put tariffs on everything. So that's going to be really, really interesting. So just to give you an idea of how much stuff moves across the border in that way, back in 2023, basically roughly $54.5 billion worth of goods came into the U.S. using that exemption. And as I mentioned before, a lot of it was from small businesses, a lot of Canadians, for example, that basically just rely on American customers. So that's kind of important for us. Now, China, like right now, we still have the exemption in place until the tariffs come into place, but China's exemption is now gone because the tariff, it was part of the 10% tariff that was dropped on China. So if you think about it, one of the companies that these are, well, actually two companies in China, one Temu, the other is called Sign. They kind of have this whole business model where, a lot of Americans buy these really cheap things that get shipped by China. It takes 3 weeks, maybe a month to get your product, but they're super, super cheap. Well, now they're going to have to pay duties on all of these. So that's going to certainly impact China big time when it comes to all of these little products. It's kind of crazy. It's absolutely crazy. All right. Well, we got Mary in the house with a good afternoon. So guys, Mary's in charge of the like button. So now I got no choice. I got to tell you guys, hit the like button. I'm going to have some coffee while you guys are turning that button blue. Oh, that's so good. All right. We have Luke saying hi to all. All right. And Meta says, I bought 24,624 of the HHIS, average $12. It will be 15% of my portfolio, which is my limit on some high risk. Expecting it to go up, up, up. Eventually, meanwhile, we'll collect great dividends. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're going to get some really good dividends off of that. And hopefully, and here's the thing. Once we get past all of this craziness that's going on right now with tariffs and everything else, I think I'm still pretty bullish on where AI is going. And I think that's going to be really good for tech in general. So, and because if tech has really good time, HHIS will absolutely have some good time too. You might lose a little bit of the upside potential, but you're going to get crazy dividends and you will get some movement up for sure. King of Day says, sorry, I have to go to Costco with the wife. Have a good week, everyone. Later, Candace. Enjoy yourself. Enjoy yourself. Costco, that's that one story. It's almost impossible to go in and buy exactly what you want. Luke says, I agree. Pipeline in Quebec must be a priority. Yeah. Like one of the plans was to have it go through Quebec down into New Brunswick and make it to the port of St. John. So I think that was one of them. And that would be fantastic because that gives you, that's a nice Eastern port for shipping to Europe, Africa, anybody who needs our product over there. Let's see, I meant 24.75 each for the HHIS. Okay. There we go. Larry says, I was debating starting a glass business, buying from Timu or Baba. You can buy glassware for ceiling fans from China for less than $1 and resell 9 to 25 bucks, depending on the piece. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. A lot of drop shippers will use, they'll source a lot of the stuff from China, and they'll buy it super cheap from China, and then they will turn around and sell it for sometimes 10 times the amount on Amazon. So that's, there is money that could be made there for sure. All right, but now, of course, because of all of this stuff that's going on, we've now got this new Buy Canadian movement that's been yeah, it's been making a bit of a wave. So I've been hearing a lot about it on social media for sure. So of course, with U.S. tariffs still hanging over our heads, and they're coming. A lot of savvy shoppers, they've been sharing homegrown alternatives to popular U.S. brands, and others are boycotting American companies. And in some cases, there's people who are like, we're not going to take our vacation in the US this year. We're going to find a place to go in Canada. So there's a lot of that going on. Now, right now, currently, most of the provinces have dropped retaliations because of the pause. Not to say that they'll bring them back. They will bring them back. But some, so New Brunswick, for example, or the New Brunswick liquor stores, they're still refraining. They said, we'll sell the stuff we got, but we're not replenishing any of our U.S. stock. So they've kind of they've kind of said nope. And over in Newfoundland, they are putting a buy local campaign in place. So they're putting up signs and logos in stores for anything that's locally made. And I've heard as well that a lot of box stores are starting to put signs up and give you better signage so you know which products are Canadian made. So that's going ahead. And here's the sad thing for the United States. Even if we somehow manage to avoid the tariffs, I think the Buy Canadian movement's gonna be sticking around. And it does make sense. I mean, it's the same idea. Like, in the United States, it's American made, and that's, to me, that's perfectly fine because, when you are buying your local products and you're buying from, Canadians, what does it do? It helps our Canadian economy. So it helps keep Canadian manufacturers, and in the terms of food, it keeps the farmers in business. So even if the tariff war blows over, I think it's here to stay. I think it's here to stay. I think Canada, on the other side of all of this, is going to have a pride in ourselves. Either that, or we're all going to learn the words to the American national anthem. I don't think that's going to happen, but you never know. You never know what's going to happen. I mean, Trump is very, very much fixated on the Canadian resources. And what I've been hearing is that his whole statement is that he wants all of the critical minerals that Canada has. He wants our oil. He wants our lithium, our uranium, copper, and there's a whole bunch of other slew of minerals, but he wants them all. And he's kind of like, well, it's probably just easier to absorb Canada to get these. And that's where this whole thing is coming from. So he wants our minerals, and he's like, oh, let's just absorb Canada. It's easier than figuring another way out. So, oh boy. But I don't think it's going to work. I think the only way he's going to absorb Canada is he's going to have to use his military. There's no other way around it. All right. Let's see. No, actually, I can't type today. They cost me $12.74 each. Okay. All right. No worries. I have days like that. I have days where I just can't type for the likes of me. Lisa says, sad it takes a threat to get people to want to buy Canadian. Getting tired of the tariff. I know. It's Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Guy says, hello, Candace. Buy Canadian to me means buying TSX stocks that are on sale now. CNR, as an example. Yeah, CNR, one of my favorites. One of my favorites. So I do love CNR. Yeah, and we're probably going to get that opportunity to get some really good stuff. And I'll point this out. When we had last Monday, as you guys probably know, the market dropped big time at opening. And there were so many crazy deals. You didn't have long. You did not have long to buy, but that's because almost immediately Mexico hit their 30-day reprieve, and that sort of brought hope back to the markets. But yeah, absolutely. Talk to be honest. Love talking. Yeah. Vineet is in the house. Hello, Vineet. Hello. Let's see. Lisa says nothing has ever happened yet, but all people are talking about is Trump and tariffs. It's becoming exhausting. Yeah, it is. I even noticed that on YouTube. I'll go onto YouTube and it's like normally I have all kinds of crap to choose from. Now all I have is tariff crap and what Trump is going to do next. That seems to be, that seems to be everywhere. So there's definitely an oversaturation of it. So what can, unfortunately, I don't think there's a lot that we can do about it until, I don't want to say 4 years. I really don't want to say 4 years, but I don't know. I don't know unless Trump gets his mind fixated on something else. But and there was also an interview from Steve Bannon, global leader Steve Bannon, and he was talking about how Trump wants Canada and that he's very serious about it. Now, he was mentioning the minerals as well, which is kind of what Trudeau was talking about. And he was also talking about Arctic security and how that's going to be a really big thing, especially as more and more of the ice sheets pull back, revealing, of course, minerals. And so since everybody wants those minerals and Canada has them, it could be interesting. So, well, we'll have to see. We'll have to see. Let's see. Meta says, my coworker said she won't buy anything American due to possible tariffs. I asked her, as an investor, would you sell all your U.S. market investments? I thought not. Yeah, I mean, as an investor, the United States is still the biggest economy in the world. You can't ignore it. Is it too early to impeach Trump? Well, it's probably not. But I mean, he was impeached last time, and it really didn't stop him. So. I think we got 4 years to deal with. All right. Anchor says, even if we decide to overhaul our economy and shift focus on more international trade, it'll take years to accomplish it. Oh yeah. Well, just to build a pipeline to the east, that's not going to happen overnight, and it's going to cost a lot of money too. Probably. I bet you wouldn't be able to do it with 25 billion. I think it would be north of that. Mark says, thoughts on interprovincial tariffs, especially any sectors that may or may not want this to happen. That's a thing, though. There may be sectors that have very good reasons for not wanting free trade across Canada, but the reality is, I think that's the direction we're going to be moving in. Maybe there might be some goods that have some exceptions if they have a really good enough reason. But I think the free trade across Canada is definitely probably going to happen. Let's see. Even if we have the political resolve to actually do it. That's always the fun part. Trump is getting ready for war with Russia and China. Tariff is just a distraction, in my opinion. I hope not. It's one of those wars I do not want to see. And I think, Russia and the United States, they've been at war unofficially. Basically, they tend to use proxy wars, and that to me is probably the safest way to go. but I wouldn't want to see a direct United States-Russia war, just because there's potential for things to get really out of hand. Let's see, the pipeline can be built with the cheap labor being deported from the U.S. Oh, yeah, maybe. Oh, boy. Let's see, does each province charge a fee to ship across or purchase? It depends. In some cases, it just won't even allow. Like, for example, if your truck doesn't meet the standards of one province to the province next to it, you may not even be allowed to drive in at all. So in some cases, yes, some cases there's fees. Some cases, it's just you're not the rules are so different that it makes it pretty much impossible, because it's not like you can sort of, you know, look for the lowest common denominator in the country to start shipping with. You have to, yeah, it just doesn't work. It doesn't work. All right, guys. All right, let's talk about our news from the Hill. So an interesting thing. A poll was done this week, and believe it or not, Canadians prefer Mark Carney over Poilievre for U.S. trade negotiations. So in this recent poll, 39.6% of Canadians believe that Mark Carney is best suited to handle trade and tariff talks with Donald Trump. 26% thought that Pierre Poilievre was best for the role. And basically, it boils down to Carney's experience. A lot of people say that because having been the Bank of Canada and the Bank of England governor during the financial crisis boosts his credibility. Now, some people will argue the exact opposite for sure. Now, here's an interesting thing as well. In this poll as well, 76% of Canadians are supporting suspending oil, natural gas, and electricity exports to the U.S. if tariffs are improvised or imposed. That's interesting. That's kind of the nuclear option. That would be tough for sure. 88% support removing U.S. alcohol from Canadian stores as retaliation, and a lot of provinces have already started doing that. And about 60% of Canadians favor immediate dollar-for-dollar tariffs in response to U.S. tariff increases. So definitely interesting. Now, interesting side note, we talked about people choosing Carney over Poilievre, but we also have Chrystia Freeland. Only 12.5% of Canadians believe that she's the best choice to negotiate with the United States. And really, even though she has a role in trade talks, Carney still beats her 3-1. The other candidates pretty much didn't even register in the poll. So what can we say? In regards to defense spending, this is a pretty good big poll. 64% of Canadians believe that we should increase the military spending, with 52% supporting the 2%. And Trump, of course, in his inauguration speech, he said he was going to ask everybody in NATO to go up to 5%. Only 12% of Canadians are supporting us taking our military up to 5% GDP. And 14% want us just to keep the spending at the current level and said, nope, we shouldn't change anything at all. We're just going to keep it at the 1.37% GDP. And 6% say we shouldn't even be spending that much. So interesting. So that was, of course, a poll by Nanos. And it was... they did their research between January 31st and February 3rd. So interesting as well. But I also took a look at the polls. So I looked at the polls on Friday. So currently right now, across Canada-wise, Conservatives are still leading at the top at 43.4%. Now, they are down a full percent. The Liberals picked up 1% from them at 23.4%. So election-wise, it's still going to be Poilievre who's going to have to deal with Trump once we get to the election. Carney will probably get a little bit of time with him. The NDP are coming in third place right now, 17.3%. They were down 0.2. The Bloc Québécois up at 8.3%. They were up 1. Green Party at 4.1%. And the People's Party That's that brand new party, 2.6%. So if we held an election today, we would have a conservative majority. They'd have 210 seats. The Liberals would get into second place to get the official opposition with 70 seats, Bloc with 41 seats, NDP with 20 seats, and 2 seats for the Green. 2 wonderful seats for the Green Party. At least they get something. At least they get something. All right. Let's see here. Anchor says, let's see, the British call Carney Mark Carnage for a reason. Yeah, maybe. And that's the thing. Like I said, there's people that have wildly opposite opinions on Mark Carney for sure. Prairie says, clearly my vote was not counted for that poll. I guess not. Carney is bad news for Canada. Good luck. Yeah, and like I said, Carney, some people have a lot of opinions about him. Ian says, American farmers don't want a tariff on potash, potash. There we go. Apparently, they get 80% of it from us. Yeah, absolutely. Nutrient, that's their big export. Carney is the same as Trudeau. And let's see, the Liberal leader race is a farce. Although one thing you have to keep in mind, and this is what Poilievre does need to do, he needs to sort of start changing his messaging a little bit. So calling him carbon tax Carney is probably not the big thing, because right now people aren't even thinking about the carbon tax. They're thinking about the tariffs. So I think some of Poilievre's messaging has to maybe move in that direction. So we'll have to see how that goes. 9 says HHIS is good exposure to BTC too. Yeah, does it have? I didn't realize it had some Bitcoin in there, but hey, if it does, nothing wrong with that. Let's see. Lisa says Carney doesn't even hold a seat in Parliament, yet he is likely going to become our PM. Shameful. Yeah. He will. I mean, he'll have to run in the next election. Because my understanding is that if you become the leader of the party and you don't hold a seat, or if you're the leader of the party and you lose your seat, somebody has to surrender their seat to you, because you still have to have a seat once it forms. So we'll have to see. Now that was, I'm going back to civics class, like high school. Maybe the rules have changed since then, but that was my understanding. Let's see. We have enough unelected officials in Canada. We certainly don't need one as PM. Let's see. Here we go. Pierre Poilievre just announced a rebranding this week to Canada First. Yeah. Canada First. That is that attitude, right? That is hitting right across everybody. Everybody is going with that. All right. Well, we got ourselves another little story. Halifax. And we got a Halifax story. There we go, Jonathan. This one's for you. So, in their efforts to promote a greener transportation system, the government is giving $25 million to the Halifax Port Authority. So the way it's going to work is under the Green Shipping Corridor program. They want to accelerate the development of the Halifax-Hamburg Green Shipping Corridor by preparing to host and potentially refuel alternative fuel-powered vessels. The fun. Establishing a hydrogen production facility. Now, keep in mind, this whole Halifax-Hamburg thing, this is all about hydrogen. So this is, having them ready to be able to transport that hydrogen is big. Also, electrifying the port equipment to reduce emissions and acquiring an electric rail locomotive and launching an incentive program to shift freight traffic from road to rail. Yeah, rail is the most efficient way to move across land. It's so much cheaper compared to trucking. And I know CP has already been looking at electric cars. So I don't know I don't think CP has any access to Halifax, but CM would probably need to do that, I guess, under this. They're also looking at another $2.5 million in there for the ship-to-shore crane infrastructure project. So this is good news for Halifax. Halifax is one of these ports that really you keep thinking it should be bigger than it really is. I guess a big part of the reason that Halifax is not as big as something like take a look at the big ports along the United States on the East Coast. The reason Halifax isn't is because you got the St. Lawrence Seaway, and that's pretty much a quick a quick little trip right into the heart of Canada. So that's one of the reasons that has certainly helped hurt Halifax. Also, you got to keep in mind, early in the 19th century, Halifax had to be practically rebuilt, that area, after the Halifax explosion. So always some fun stuff. Oh, we're getting through the news pretty good, guys. We're getting there. We're getting there. All right, what do we got here? Tom is saying, sorry if it has already been mentioned, but what is your take on the reciprocal tariffs starting this week? So yeah, I mean, when it comes to tariffs, and I don't know if you're talking about our Canadian ones, my understanding is that those are on hold until we see whether these new March ones are going to come through. But it's kind of an interesting thing. I guess my biggest concern is that if we're going to retaliate with more tariffs, we need to make sure that that money is going back to support the Canadian economy and businesses that are impacted by the tariffs. So definitely, as long as we're giving it back, that's fantastic. I just don't want to see the government taking that money and using it for other stuff. Don't use it for other stuff. Use it to directly support the Canadians who are going to be suffering from these tariffs, and then I'm okay with them. Then I'm okay. But the reality is, it's just going to keep on. It might escalate even further because Trump did say that, if we retaliate, he's going to, knock the tariffs up bigger, and then we'll have to knock them up bigger. So it could be it's going to be very interesting if this goes ahead in March. Yeah, we'll have some very interesting shows in March. I have a feeling. AA says, I am wondering how many actually understand the impact on Canada if Canada imposes tariffs on the US. Dollar for dollar amounts nice, but in real, it will be a disaster given the ground reality. Oh, yeah, no, it's going to be a disaster. By retaliating, especially dollar for dollar, it's pretty much guaranteeing a recession. It's going to cause a lot of economic pain a lot more pain to Canada than the United States. We pretty much, our exports are almost entirely to the United States. Almost. We do have a lot of others, but the sheer amount compared to what the U.S. exports to us, we're going to get hurt a lot more than the United States will. That's for darn sure. Michael says, I know that HLF earnings was 0.57, that beat 0.31, which the company raised the outlook with insiders buying over 10.50 and lower, with which notice a fund bought this week. What is your take? HLF. Let me take, just give me a second here. Oh, I gotta shrink my little beaver guy here. All right. Let's take a look at HLF here. Give me a second here. That is not what I'm looking for. This is what I'm looking for right here. HLF. Here we go. So HLF, Highliner. It's like every time I hear Highliner, I in the back of my head, I hear, have you ever been to sea, Billy? If you remember those commercials. Now they're pretty old though. All right. Let's take a look here. I mean, Highliner, it's a company. I like Highliner overall, but I mean, look at this. They've had some really good, and this is in the last year, but since about September, they have absolutely been on a tear. So that's not too shabby at all. Now, they do have a good yield, 4.282% quarterly dividend. Nice. When we go into their back end data here, this is one of the things I like as well. Their debt to equity ratio of 56%. So that's not bad for a company of this size. They have a pretty solid return on equity, 15.26. So I do like them. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. They're a good company. And just give me a second here. Let me go back to your question here. So my take on it, their earnings at the fact that they really beat that 0.31, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we already saw that they had that massive growth spurt. So that's not surprising me at all. And I do like Highliner. I think they're a good company. I think they're a good company long term. Yeah, Absolutely. I got nothing negative to say about Highliner. All right. RD says, hey y'all. Hi Candace. Simple way of valuing an ETF, please. That's a very big question, RD. It depends. I mean, there's different types of ETFs and different functions, right? And I would have a different way of valuing one depending on what it is. So, for example, if it's an income ETF, so like like HHIS, my big goal on that is I want to see, I'm okay with return on capital. That's usually part of the model with it, but I also want to make sure that we don't have have share erosion with it. Um, so that's kind of one of my big things when it comes to income. It's like I look at the shares. I want to make sure I don't have a lot of erosion. I also want to think not in terms of the yield. I like to think as well in terms of the actual total return, and that will be the number for me on whether or not I like it. Now, here's the thing. If you're using it for a retirement portfolio and the actual share value is not as important to you, well then I probably would in that case put more priority on what that actual yield is, as well as how low that could potentially go in a bear market. So for example, when you look at HHIS, and let me pull this up. I'll show you this. This is cool. I like this. Just see here. Whoops. All right, Google, we'll go HHIS. Just throw Harvest in there as well. Okay. Yes, you can use my current location. I'm in Ottawa. All right. One of the things I like here is that right now we know we're getting 25 a month. So 25 is our monthly amount. Now in here somewhere is, well, here's everything it holds. Now is this one not showing us? Now let's go into the more details. Well, this one's not showing me, but I've seen it on a couple of the other ones where it will actually tell me potentially how much lower it could go. So I thought for this one, for some reason, in the back of my mind, I was thinking like 16 cents. So let's keep that in mind. If in a worst case scenario, this could go down to 16 cents a month in a bear market, that's still really good. And for an income portfolio, it's like, okay, so in the bad months, I will get 16 cents share. The good months, I'll get 25, and maybe it'll go higher. We don't know. So that could be really, really interesting. So that's kind of that. But now, if I'm looking at a growth, so let's say, for example, I'm looking at something more or less along the lines of I want a good S&P 500. So in that case, there, looking at something like VFV, I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to look at what this what this has been doing through its lifetime. I might even go out further. Because here's a bear market. So I like where I can see, like when I can see a history like this, I can see right here, I can see the pandemic right there, bull market, bull market, bear market, bull market. I can see exactly how this ETF, so history is always a good thing if I can get a good history on it too, because I know what's going to happen when we get into the next bear market. That's what's going to happen. It's going to come down. Now, maybe it's a more aggressive one. It might go down a little bit lower, but it's going to recover. And for the most part, when you look at their bear to bull, the bulls are much, much, much bigger, and I like to see that. And I like how this one moves. So I'm pretty good with this. Like I can go back 10 years if I want to. And when I go back 10 years, you can sort of see it looks smaller, but it's still big. That's still a big bear market. Here's another little bear market here. Here's a little bear market here. I can sort of see. So I get an idea of how it functions. And then I don't have surprises. I know that, I know what's going to happen. This here is going to happen. This is going to happen. Is it going to happen tomorrow? Maybe. Is it going to happen, more realistically by the summer? Maybe towards the end of the year. We don't know, but I'm prepared for it. So that's kind of the way I look at it with, with an ETF. All right. Amvas is back. Oh, good to see you. Let's see. An advisor suggested CAD blue chip stocks for even U.S. investors. Seems that you covered Aristocrat Canadian. I love the Aristocrats. Aristocrat Canadian ETS recently, and number one was CDZ. Is it still true if the tariff goes through? Okay, so CDZ. Let's actually pull this up for you guys. This here is an ETF that invests in the Canadian aristocrats. So aristocrats, in case anybody's new, an aristocrat, basically in Canada, if you increase your dividend 5 consecutive years, you can become a dividend aristocrat. There's a couple of other little rules as well, but for the meta on this, it's just 5 years, you become an aristocrat. If you do it for 50 years, you become a king. So you become a dividend king. And right now in Canada, there's only 2 companies that are dividend kings. That's Canadian Utilities and Fortis. But there's a lot of aristocrats and a lot of good. Now, a lot of times, what's nice about an aristocrat is companies are proud of having that status. And if you've got a company that is a dividend aristocrat and they have increased their dividend for, like, let's say 20 years in a row or longer, they're not going to easily just not increase their dividend because, they've got a record on the line. Now, you take a company like, if you look at the dividend kings, like Fortis and Canadian Utilities, they will probably take on more debt just to prevent themselves from losing that status. So they are good. Now, with the tariffs, some of these companies will be impacted. Absolutely. Some will, some won't, because, you've got a mixture of companies. So some companies who are aristocrats, if they're involved heavily in exporting, they might be impacted. There might be some companies that lose their aristocrat status, if this gets bad. That's just the way it is. But for the most part, these are strong, fundamentally good companies. So worst case scenario, even if a couple of them fall off that list, the companies that you have in here, mind you, the ones that fall off the list would get replaced by the ETF anyway. On the other side of the end, once we're past the tariffs, and if we get a bear market, we're past that. These are going to be companies that will recover. They will look good on the other side. So that is just that's not too shabby. It's not too shabby at all. All right. Oh, what do we got here? Red finger number. Red finger number. There we go. Awesome. Let's see. Jay says Canada can stick it to the US. No eggs for you. The US might come invading to get some eggs from us, but we actually do have an egg story, by the way. It's in the title. So we're gonna get to that egg story momentarily. Ambas says HHIS holds Coiny, and there we go, Coiny. So there's your Bitcoin exposure, and MSTY, of course, yeah, duh. This would be a good exposure to BTC1 if one doesn't have any. Appreciate your thoughts. So yeah, so Coiny, that's Coinbase, and Misty, of course, is Strategy. They used to be called MicroStrategy, but now they are called Strategy. Yeah, Strategy has a ton of Bitcoin on their balance sheet, so they're almost like an unofficial ETF for Bitcoin. And Coinbase, well, they have exposure to all of crypto because that's their business model. They're an exchange. And so yeah, that is good exposure for sure. Absolutely. Of your Bitcoin. There we go. All right. RD says share erosion history. Okay, I forgot to mention a dividend ETF. Thanks. Yeah, exactly. Well, with the dividend ETFs, as we were talking about, it depends on what you're using it for. If you are not using it for income, so like if it's not designed entirely just to be generating income, like a retirement income portfolio, I always, like I said, I always like to pay attention to what's happening behind the scenes. Do they have share erosion? Is there a lot of return of capital? Is there, and what mixture of dividends am I getting? So for example, if I have to hold it, like if I'm holding it in a personal account because my TFSA was full, then I want to know, is it mostly eligible dividends opposed to ineligible or foreign dividends because of the tax situation? So I will put a whole bunch in there. Maybe that would be a good idea for a video, is to maybe do like a I guess an ETF checklist of some sorts. Meta says Canada could retaliate against US tariffs by leasing land for an Arctic port access to China or Russia. As a sovereign nation, it's an option. Oh, I don't think that would go over well with the US, but you never know. All right, Vic is still here. Eighth cup of Joe. Oh boy. Oh, Vic, that's a lot of Joe. All right, AA says premiers are complaining. Federal government is doing nothing so far about border and fentanyl while March deadline is looming. That's a sad situation. You gotta remember a couple of things, AA. Canada is not, we're responsible for less than 1% of the fentanyl that's coming into the US. Ironically, just, everybody who's been caught smuggling fentanyl across our border, they've all been Americans. So the thing is, Donald Trump, to get whatever his objectives, his end objectives are, and a lot of people think it is Canada, that he is after Canada overall. A lot of it is that he is by going after the fentanyl and border security and all of that, it gives him a justification to declare it as an emergency so that he doesn't have to involve Congress. So that's part of it. That's kind of, think of the fentanyl and the border thing as the wrapper around what he really wants. And what he really wants with Canada, of course, is he wants to, other than wanting Canada, he also wants that exposure for some of the Canadian companies. Now he thinks U.S. banks can't operate in Canada. They can. They have a different rule set. They don't have the same. They don't have the same full banking privileges that our Canadian banks do. But they can still operate, and they can still they're just not a Schedule I bank. But there's a few different things that he wants. So keep in mind that is kind of a little bit of a wrapping. It's kind of interesting. Even I think, and one of the things that he said when he was going to review the 30 days is that he wants to make sure that Canada has made the economic concessions. He didn't actually mention that he wants to make sure that the borders are perfect in 30 days. He was talking about economic stuff. So you're going to see that there's a bigger story behind all of this. So, still do the border stuff because, if anything, having better security on the border will protect Canadians from a lot of the guns that come up from the United States. So I don't think the U.S. needs protection from us. We probably need protection from them. In that case there. Let's see. Can Canadian ETFs also qualify for Aristocrat or King status, or just companies? Just companies. Just companies. Yeah. It'd be interesting if we could have, why can't we have Aristocrat system for ETFs? That'd be kind of cool. Let's see. Michael says, hello again, Candace. Have you looked at Alphamine recently, the tin producer in Africa? You seemed impressed with it, but it has fallen due to Rwanda's invasion of Congo. Yeah. You see, that's one of those interesting things. Like, a black swan event can change anything. And, when somebody invades, so in this case here, invasion of Rwanda invading Congo, that's a black swan event, and it can completely change things. So, yeah, in a situation like that, it's like, yeah, maybe it looked good at that point, but oh yeah, that can be bad. That can definitely be bad for sure. Let's see. All right, and that's making a bad situation worse. All right, Tom says, I thought those reciprocal tariffs that he is announcing this week are new, hard to keep up. Yeah, I know. And that's the thing. Until it happens. My understanding right now is that we're still in that, actually there's two sets of tariffs, to be honest. Well, not two sets. In March, after the 30 days, that's when the original tariffs will come back. So the 25% on everything, 10% on oil. Then there are more tariffs, or not, I don't want to say more tariffs. The tariffs can be adjusted in April. He's got a study coming back, an economic study, which would then, basically look at, and that economic study, I think he's looking at trade deficits and things like that, and what he thinks is fair to be throwing against us. So we'll have to see how that looks. But that'll be April. right now, this is looking to be a very long, drawn out process. So it's like, when will we be happy again? I have a feeling the summer might be here before that happens. Vic is on, you're on your ninth. Holy banana bread. Holy banana bread. All right. It let's get the rest of this news out of the way so I don't have to keep going back and forth. I believe we're on number 7. Yes, we are. All right. So, Canada Post. Canada Post is back in the news. So, they have started to lay off a lot of their managers. Basically, their managers are paid pretty good. So, that's a good way to cut costs is by laying off managers to sort of help deal with their severe financial losses that they're currently looking at. So far, roughly 50 managers have received layoff notices. Half of them are here in Ottawa. The others are in Toronto, Montreal, and a few other regions. So they are calling it a corporate-wide restructuring to streamline their decision making and to prepare for a challenging year. We already knew it was going to be challenging. Since 2018, Canada Post has lost basically $3 billion. That's a lot. And they were in a situation where they were going to run out of money by this spring. However, the federal government stepped in and lent them $1 billion to cover 2025, 2026. So as of right now, they do have a hiring freeze on. And yeah. And they've also have a hiring freeze for managers since the summer, and they also are saying that they will not fill any non-union roles when employees leave. So if you're non-union and you leave, your job is gone forever. Now, discretionary spending has also been cut back as they're trying to save some money, trying to get their numbers to work. I don't think they're gonna, not without a complete restructuring of Canada Post. So their discretionary spending, like anything on travel, things like that, that has been cut off. And they're currently saying that all of these layoffs are not going to impact mail service or any of their frontline workers. Oh boy. All right. And very quickly, guys, let's get that last story out of the way, the egg story. So, as you guys may or may not know, there's an egg crisis going on in the United States. So, bird flu. So the bird flu outbreak has pretty much been concentrated in the U.S., and it has led to rising cost of eggs on the south side of the border. In fact, last quarter alone, they had to cull 20 million chickens. That's a lot of chickens. So the price currently of wholesale eggs in the U.S., they hit an all-time high in December, with a dozen eggs going for $5.57 US in the Midwest and $8.85 US in California. So not too good. Just recently, Waffle House has put a temporary 50-cent surcharge on every egg they sell. So yeah, you want your eggs sunny side up? That's 50 cents, please, in addition to the cost. Now, on Saturday in Pennsylvania, 100,000 eggs were stolen from a truck. And and apparently at that point, the prices had hit double digits for a dozen. So holy banana bread. Now, Canada, we're doing good up here. We're doing good up here. We do not have the same problem that the US has. Currently in Canada, we have much smaller farms. So an egg farm in Canada will have about 25,000 layers, as in hens. And the US, they have a lot bigger farms. So a lot of US farms will have bare minimum several million layers per farm. Because of that, when something like the bird flu hits, it is easy to spread. That concentration makes it really, really easy. So with a farm, so if you have a farm with 6 million birds, killing them basically eliminates about 4 million eggs from the market. And that's where these prices are coming from. And to make the situation even worse, there's now apparently a second strain of bird flu that's popped up in the US. So yeah, what can we say about that? All right, guys, just a Finish up the news. We don't got a lot going on in Canada this week, news-wise, but the US, we do have the CPI coming out on Wednesday, the PPI coming out on Thursday. Earnings-wise in Canada, Vic's favorite company, Constellation Software, they're going to drop their earnings. Not a lot in the US. Probably the biggest company that has earnings next week in the US is Southern Copper, so SCCO. And of course, our next rate meeting in Canada, it's coming up. It's going to be on March 12th, when the Bank of Canada will decide if we have another rate hike. All of that fun stuff. All of that fun stuff for sure. All right, now, I can go boom. There we go. Get rid of that, and we can put me back to the normal spot here on the screen. There we go. Everything is all right and randy. Perfect. All right, 9 says, GPT said interest paid on margin loans can be deducted on your taxes if you buy stocks, bonds that produce dividends or interest. Not sure if it's true. I just got a margin account recently. Okay. I know it depends on how you're using it. I think I'd have to look a little bit deeper into that on margin, because I haven't really looked at taxes on margin accounts, but it does sound like it's feasible. It kind of rings true in the back of my head, but like I said, I would want to double check on that. Pretty much with anything ChatGPT says, I always double check. Although I will admit, about a year, not even a year, but yeah, a little longer than a year ago, when I would double check on information that ChatGPT would give me, it was usually right about 95% of the time. Now it's probably closer to 99% of the time. The occasion it gives me something that I'm like, come on, ChatGPT. We both know that's wrong. Meta says, why would Trump want Canada as a 51st, sorry, Canada. Why would Trump want Canada as the 51st state? From his perspective, with its socialist policy, strong LGBTQ rights, and likely Democratic support, it doesn't align with his vision. Well, and that does make sense. That does make sense. Like, if you look at the population of Canada, it's about the same as California. So we would get a lot of seats if they made us a state. Now, who's to say? I mean, if he could say, "Oh no, we're going to make you a territory, so that where you don't get any." You don't get your seats in the Senate, and you don't get your votes, your electoral college votes. So that could happen. But here's the thing: so we know that Trump wants the minerals. Fantastic, wonderful. If I was in Trump's position, I would look at maybe breaking Canada up into a few states, because at least that way it would split the electoral college vote. So if you gave Alberta, for example, its own little state, that would probably be a red state. Maybe, some years it might be blue, but I think it probably would have a chance of being a red state. So that would be kind of how I would do it, to try to preserve the delicate balance between Democrat and Republican, of course. But yeah, if you just brought Canada in as one giant state with the same number of electoral college votes as California, you may have a hard time getting a Republican president going forward. But, and I'm going to say another button here, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on. And if you've seen some of the crazy stuff that's in the Project 2025, if he manages to pull off some of the stuff that's in there, it may not matter. It may not matter. Trump has been very good right now. Like, quite literally, when I look at the states, it's like I almost ask myself, does Congress even exist anymore? Because he's finding a way to just do whatever he wants. Now, the only one who's standing up to him is as occasional judges are saying, nope, striking that one down, striking that one down. But yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing. Now, here's the thing, though. I mean, let's be realistic. He's not going to. There's no peaceful way for him to get Canada. For one, just the amount of people that would have to agree um, is just crazy. There's no way that he's going to peacefully march into Canada and we're going to just give him the country. It's not happening. If he wants Canada, he needs to use the military. There's no other way around it. And if he does that, there will be ramifications on the world stage, big time. So I really just don't think he needs to step back and maybe think about what what he can get, not what he wants. So if he wanted, he could probably get an economic union, a North American union, sort of similar to what the EU has. That's doable. And maybe in the back of his head, maybe he realizes that. Maybe it's like, all right, let's get them so scared that I want to take Canada, and then I'll throw this in at the last minute as a oh well, okay, well, what about this instead? And then Canada, who's all scared of like, oh my God, what's been going on for the last year, however long, deep into it, might be like, oh yeah, we'll take that. We'll take that. Yeah, that's much better. We'll take that. So that might be what's going on. So it's going to be, like I said, this will be very interesting, and I'll cover the whole thing as it unfolds. But it's going to be interesting nonetheless. Bill says margin counts are going to be taxed like a business, not capital gains. So probably yes on interest tax deduction. That's exactly what I was thinking, Bill. That's exactly what I was thinking. But I haven't actually looked it up per se. But yeah, I think Bill's 100% right there. Meta says Trump might oppose making Canada the 51st state, but could back a trade agreement like Europe's without migration rights. Yeah, well, the thing is, though, and I remember, what was it? Kevin O'Leary was talking about, how you could have the free movement of people, but you would have to apply for a specific type of thing. So in other words, you couldn't just sort of get up and say, okay, I'm moving to the States now because of this economic union. You'd have to apply, and once you got, like, for example, if there was a job that you needed that they needed your expertise for, you could move there. Your whole family could move and all of that. But we'll see we'll have to see how it all works. I mean, you want to make it easier for people to be able to move back and forth. So, for example, a lot of AI people might want to move up to Canada just because of some of the resources we have, and maybe because of the cold and that new AI center that they're looking at building in Alberta. That's why, because they have the cold most of the year. They have the cheap energy. It's pretty cool. Jay says, does Wealthsimple keep track for TFSA contributions, or should I print out a statement from Wealthsimple for my tax return? It depends on where you're doing your taxes, Jay. So if you're doing your taxes in Wealthsimple Tax, they'll import it all over for you. Easy peasy. But if you're using another program, then what I would say is you just need to print off most of your tax documentations. That should be fine. Like, you'll have all of your different T-slips, and that is within Wealthsimple. You can print those off. Now, if you're trading, then that's another story altogether, because then you might need to look at the record of your trades to be able to calculate your business income versus business losses. So that might require a bit more work to it if that's the situation. But and also keep in mind, if you have stuff in Wealthsimple crypto, it'll all get imported as you do it. So it's usually not that bad for the most part. So what can I say? Okay. All right. Here we go. This might be what maybe this is what Tom was mentioning. Sophie says, just now, President Trump said he will announce on Monday that the United States will impose 25% tariffs on all steel and aluminum imports, including from Canada and Mexico. Okay. Interesting. Very, very interesting. And here's the thing, though, guys. This could be a bad thing. This could be really bad for Canadian steel and aluminum. Because if he drops when he brings back the new tariffs or the old tariffs in March, we might get a situation where we have 25 on 25 for for aluminum and steel. So that could be interesting, unless he changes the stipulations in those. And lets it still sit at 25. But a lot of times he just piles tariff on top of tariff. So that's yeah, that's not good, Sophie. Not good. The fun. It never ends. It never ends. Amvas says in retirement, would Canadian banks, would a CAD banks ETF like HMAX yield sustainable to live off? And for extra funds, would FCUV and XEQT for growth and CDZ income, is fixed income like bonds plus VGRO still be necessary? It boils down to what you're looking at doing, right? So for example, if you're trying to create that income, so if you want an income retirement, so you're looking to just create income coming out of your TFSA tax-free, so it's not affecting other supports, so it's not affecting your, you're not getting a clawback on your old age security, or if you are low enough income that you've got the GIS, it's not impacting that as well. In a case like that, you probably aren't looking at things like XEQT. You're probably looking at more income focused because you want to get that higher income coming out. However, if that's not your focus in retirement, and it may not be, you may have enough money. Maybe you have a good pension. Maybe you have, money is not an issue. In that case there, then yeah, you would certainly be looking at a few things. Like I look at XEQT as a great way to grow because this is my view. My view on investing is that what we're looking at is as you begin investing in your 20s, 30s, whatever you began, your goal is to create as much space. You're growing your stuff as big as you can. So with your TFSA, for example, the more you can grow it, the more income stuff you can stuff in it when you retire. And that's kind of how I look at it. Now, keep in mind, this is my view, and this is how I'm looking at it for my retirement eventually, is, grow that TFSA nice and huge so I can get a really good income coming out, all tax-free. And there's nothing like tax-free income. Now, if you have somebody who's brand new to investing right now in their 20s, and they were to use my strategy from 20 all the way up to 65, there's no reason and they could not have a TFSA at 65. That's like $1 million. They could do it. They could do it. I mean, you'd be a lot of dedicated work. It's not going to be easy. But imagine if you had a $1 million TFSA and you were averaging, let's say, a 10% monthly, 10% per year. But imagine if you were getting a 10% return just from income coming out. So that would be like $100,000 a year tax-free. That wouldn't be too shabby. It's doable. Now, most of us didn't start when we were 20, so we're probably not going to get to that $1 million TFSA. But I was just sort of looking at that as being a kind of a bigger picture if you had all of that time. So it really boils down to exactly what you want. And I know that we've talked in the past. So, I thought that you were looking mostly for the income, but yeah, the XEQT, like I said, it is a good one for growth for sure. And for those of you who don't know who XEQT is, I do have videos on XEQT, but this here is an all equity ETF. So now I'm just going to pull up the last 5 years, and you can see there's the bear market, there's the the pandemic bear market, but yeah, it moves very much. So it has stocks. It's got stocks from Canada, stocks from the United States, stocks from Europe and Australia, Asia, and it has emerging markets as well. It's got exposure to that. Now, basically how it does it is it's an iShares and it holds a bunch of other ETFs to give it all of that really broad exposure. But it's a pretty good stock. It's really good diversification. It's also a good one for growing. It's a good one for growing the size of your portfolio for sure, or in this case here, making your TFSA bigger. All right. Sophie says, if you heard Carney on US TV, he was on We Don't Use Steel, Trudeau 2.0. Okay. Harold says, Harvest has announced another pile, oh, really, of single stock ETFs. Broadcom sounds interesting. I do like Broadcom. And these will probably get put into HHIS as well. So, yeah, absolutely. That's cool. That's cool. Um, you know what? Let's see if we can find this. All right, harvest. Well, I got to go to Google first. All right, harvest. I think you. All right, here we go. High income shares. And let's see here. Da, 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 da. Let's see, high income shares. I was hoping you'd think they half the time when they do this, they put it right on the front page, but I'm not seeing anything up here on the front page. Let me just see here. Products, insights. I'm going to go to the press. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Let's see here. Let's take a look at this one here. No, these are the ones they already have. Well, these are the ones that, darn it. But, oh well. I won't spend a lot of time on it, but I do like that idea. And I think they're going to continue. Now, I actually thought an interesting video. Probably we want to give harvest a bit of time to get a little bit of history behind them, but I'd love to do a purpose versus harvest because those are the two that have these similar type stocks. So I think that would be kind of really interesting, and I think purpose will probably start upping their game too. So that's going to be really, really cool. Muddy says, I hold small number of Yield Max MSTY shares that are paying this week, hoping the new tariff declaration doesn't disrupt market too much. Yeah, I agree. 100%. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. There's no way around it. No way around it, unfortunately. And it seems to me it might be a long 4 years. It really might. But that's the thing. Once Trump finally loses focus on Canada, then it will be Europe's turn. I know he's been talking about Europe. He's been talking about the UK. Oh gosh. Well, what can we say? All right, guys, if you got your last minute questions, doesn't mean we're at the end yet, but if you got your last minute questions, throw them in. Let's get it rolling. See what's going on. While you guys are composing those last questions, I'm gonna have myself some coffee here. Oh, that's so good. So good. Coming up on the channel. So on Tuesday, we do have I was going to say a divio. Yeah, that's what we'll call it. We have a video on defensive. I was going to say defensive harvesting. Oh boy, I've lost it. It's like I'm in the football game and I got hit really hard in the head with the football. Defensive investing. That's what we're going to be doing. And now nobody took the subscriber sponsored video this month, so I got to come up with something. I'm going to try to come up with something creative for the Friday video, something a little bit different. We'll try something. We'll figure. I don't have a clue yet what it's going to be, but I got to figure that out I got to script it on Tuesday, so I got a couple of days to come up with something good. That's for sure. Let's see. Anchor says, I stepped away from the computer for a bit. Trump just announced a new 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum effective Monday. Yes, Sophie was mentioning that earlier. I'm like, oh, God. It never ends, guys. It just never ends. And I'm sure, well, hey, guys, let's take a gander here. We'll head over to, let's go to the Globe and Mail this time. Yeah, here we go. Breaking news right here. Trump says he will announce 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum imports, including from Canada, on Monday. Now, here's the thing. It says he announces, but will it be? Reciprocal tariffs on other countries. That's what Tom was talking about. Okay. Now this is making a little bit more sense. Let's see here. This comes a week after Trump paused plans. Let's see, lifted them about a year, retaliated with his own tariffs. There's not a lot of news here. So this one here is saying that, all right, he'll announce them on other countries on Tuesday or Wednesday. He did not specify what this would look like. Yeah, he says he's going to announce it on Monday. Well, it might go. It might actually go live on Monday as well. It's hard to say. It's hard to say. Oh boy, the fun of it all. Bill says Canada should respond with a 25% tariff on rhetoric. I know. It's like, oh, you can't win. I don't think you can win this game against Trump. It's just not going to happen. Anchor says markets are going to negatively react tomorrow. Yes, we probably will have a red day tomorrow now. Yeah, well, the fun. I don't know, guys. I don't know, but what can we do? Harold says if markets drop tomorrow, a lot of monthly dividend stocks pay tomorrow, so DRIP will pick up more. Yeah, absolutely. If it's anything like the last Monday, last Monday, like, look, guys, I will show you something here. Whoops, that's not what I wanted to show you. I want to show you this here. So let's go to our good old favorite. We'll go. Whoops, I'm just going to put an EIT. I started to type in Canoe. Right here, this was last Monday. So Canoe, it's $15 ETF. It dropped all the way down to 13.26. So yeah, I got somewheres on this V. I can't remember exactly where, but I was just like, okay, I have to grab that. It was not there long because, like I said, it was a situation. And keep in mind, wasn't just Canoe. You could go to almost anybody. Well, let's go to VFV, for example. I think VFV had a similar one here. Yeah, theirs wasn't that big, but it did go down. Yeah, VFV was down a little bit. I don't see it here, but I think I remember seeing it on Dollarama. I think Dollarama had it too. Yeah, here's your little V. So this V will show up on almost not everything, but a lot of things. It was interesting buying opportunity, but you had to be fast. It wasn't here for long. All right, let's see. If markets will remain choppy for a while, would increasing index-covered call strategy ETFs be more profitable? Is it best to stay away from Canadian oil and energy? So ENCC, thanks so much. I like Canadian energy, but here's that thing. We are getting into a point where there are some things that could happen. I've heard leaks that there's a potential end coming to the Russia-Ukraine. Now, the leaks I heard is that Russia would get to keep the annexed land that they've taken. Ukraine would have to give back their land and also promise to never join NATO and a whole bunch of other little things like that. But if that happens, that will probably cause oil to come back a little bit for sure. But at the same time, if Trump keeps going on to this Gaza thing, but he seems to be backpedaling a little bit on it. But oil will probably remain choppy for a bit, and that's why it's good to invest. So keep in mind when it does, when oil finally resurges again, and it always does. Things like ENCL will do great. You've got the leverage going up as well. ENCC will do good as well. But keep in mind, if we get a situation, this is one of the dangers of like ENCC. If we have a geopolitical black swan event, so something big happens in the Middle East, causes oil to absolutely explode because of it, you're going to lose a lot of that upside potential with a covered call version. That's where something like XEG, for example, you're at least going to get all of that potential when it goes up in that. And that's where oil is kind of a fun one to play. But with the NCC, you're getting a nice dividend. There's nothing wrong with that. And as long as oil keeps on dredging at the bottom, or even if it keeps on falling a little bit, ENCC is going to make you more money than, what XCG will make you right now. So I do like ENCC. Even ENCCL right now, as long as we're moving sideways, is not that bad. But when it does start moving up, that's when ENCL, that's where it will make more money than ENCC because that leverage, which will help it grow a bit more. Bill says, your feed doesn't match what you're talking about. Still on harvest page. My feed. Oh, really? Oh, never mind. I I was on the wrong window. That's why. Okay, okay. Thank you, Bill. Thank you. Uh, yeah, yeah. So canoe. I will show you guys that one more time here. Here we go. So yeah, here this was last Monday. So canoe went down. Um, Like on this here, you can only see it going down to about 1450, but it actually peaked. It did go down to 1326, but it was not there long. It was not there long. So, um, there were movements to be made, but you had to act fast. Like it was kind of like this on everybody. And I mentioned as well, I think I showed, was it Dollarama? I think I showed Dollarama as well. Here we go. And you can see that was that thing. Now, if the whole thing with Mexico hadn't happened, we probably would have stayed down there for a bit longer. But that gave us hope. Now we'll have to see how this is tomorrow. Whether it will drop as badly, I don't think it will. I don't think it'll be as bad, but I do think we'll see some red, and we'll probably see some buying opportunities. As he keeps on doing it. He keeps on doing it, guys. What's going on with this world? That's what I want to know. All right. Well, guys, we're almost at 2 hours. So um, I think a few of you probably want to catch the Super Bowl. Well, then again, maybe I'm like the alternative to the Super Bowl tonight. Nonetheless, guys, this has been another fantastic stream. We're going to be back again on Wednesday for a market close. I have a feeling it is going to be a good one. I have a feeling it will be a good one for sure. So I hope to see you guys then. Until then, guys, take care. Enjoy the rest of your day. And hey, hopefully your team wins. I don't know what your team is, but hopefully one of them wins. Until then, guys, take care. Bye, everybody.